The soft glow of my phone screen illuminated the dimly lit living room, casting long shadows across the walls. I blinked at the message from Jake, my husband Mark's younger brother, feeling a twinge of excitement mixed with apprehension. "Hey, Emily, want to grab dinner tonight? Mark's away, and I could use some company." It was a simple invitation, but it sent my heart racing. I glanced towards the kitchen, where Mark often prepared dinner with a focus that bordered on obsession, the smell of garlic and herbs lingering in the air long after he'd left for his business trip. I loved him dearly, but lately, the routine of our life felt like a comfortable prison. The days blurred together, each one resembling the last, and I often found myself daydreaming of something. Anything different. Should I go? I thought, biting my lip as I considered the implications of accepting Jake's invitation. I had never been alone with him before, and while he was undeniably charming, I felt a sense of loyalty to Mark that tugged at my conscience. But a part of me, the part that craved a spark of excitement, whispered that a night out could be harmless fun. In a moment of impulsive curiosity, I decided to text him back. "Sure. What time?" I pressed send, my heart thumping in my chest. Almost immediately, his reply came through. "7 p.m.? I'll pick you up." As I put my phone down, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I needed to talk to someone about this. So I reached out to Sarah, my best friend, who always had a knack for navigating the complexities of relationships. "Hey, what's up?" she answered, her voice bright through the phone. "I got a text from Jake," I said, my stomach nodding. "He wants to take me to dinner while Mark is away." There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Are you serious? You know how flirty he can be. Are you sure that's a good idea?" "I don't know, Sarah," I replied, pacing the length of my living room. "I mean, it's just dinner, right? I could use a night out. It's not like I'm cheating." "Emily, you need to think this through," she warned, her tone serious. "It could lead to trouble. You and Mark have a good thing going. Don't jeopardize it for a little excitement." "I know," I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "But I feel like I'm missing something in my life. It's been so routine lately. Maybe you just need to shake things up a bit, but be careful. Just remember who you're married to," she said, her voice softening. "You deserve to have fun, but don't lose sight of what's important." After our conversation, I felt a mix of resolve and doubt. I wanted to have fun, but at what cost? As evening approached, I dressed carefully, opting for a simple but elegant black dress that hugged my curves without being too revealing. I looked in the mirror, applying a touch of mascara and a hint of lipstick. My reflection stared back at me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of excitement. When Jake arrived, he stood at the door with a boyish grin that made my heart skip. "Wow, you look amazing," he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling in the warm light of the porch. I felt a blush creep up my cheeks as I thanked him, stepping out into the cool evening air. The drive to the restaurant was filled with laughter and playful banter. Jake had a way of making me feel alive, his energy infectious as he recounted stories from his college days and teased me about my own. I found myself leaning in, captivated by his charm, a stark contrast to the quiet evenings at home with Mark. Over dinner, the atmosphere was light, filled with laughter and easy conversation. I couldn't help but feel a thrill every time his knee brushed against mine under the table. It was innocent, or so I told myself, but the thrill of it was undeniable. I hadn't felt this exhilarated in years. As the night wore on, I realized I was enjoying his company more than I had anticipated. The spark of excitement I had craved was igniting, pulling me deeper into a world I had almost forgotten existed. But as I looked into Jake's eyes, I felt a flicker of guilt. What was I doing? I was crossing a line I had vowed never to approach, yet the thrill of the moment was intoxicating. and I found myself wanting more. "Let's get dessert," Jake suggested, his eyes dancing with mischief. I nodded, a smile spreading across my face, unaware that the choices I was making would soon lead to a tangled web of emotions and consequences I could never have anticipated. As the evening wore on, I found myself entranced by the atmosphere that Jake had created in his cozy apartment. Soft music wafted through the air, mingling with the scent of garlic and herbs from the dinner he had prepared. I was surprised by how at ease I felt, laughing at his jokes and teasing remarks. But as he leaned back in his chair, a devilish grin on his face, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were treading on dangerous ground. "Come on, Emily," he said, his voice light yet probing. "You can't tell me you're completely satisfied with the way things are going with Mark. I mean, he works all the time. What do you do for fun?" I shrugged, taking a sip of my wine to buy myself some time. "It's not that bad. We make it work, you know? It's just life is busy." "Busy? That's not an excuse for boredom," Jake said, leaning closer, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "You're too vibrant to be stuck in a routine. Remember those summers we spent at the lake? You were always the one getting us into trouble." His words sent a thrill through me, a mix of nostalgia and the pang of something else, something I didn't want to acknowledge. "Yeah, well, we were kids then. Life isn't all fun and games anymore." "Why not?" He challenged, his tone playful yet insistent. "You're still young. You deserve to have some fun. Don't you ever think about what you really want?" His question hung in the air, heavy with implications. I felt my heart quicken. Was I happy? I loved Mark, didn't I? Yet, in this moment, sitting across from Jake, I couldn't help but question everything. I suppose I don't know, I admitted, feeling vulnerable. "Look, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just think you should explore what makes you happy. Life's too short to be stuck in a rut." He paused, his gaze intense. "And you're too amazing to settle for mediocrity." I felt a rush of warmth at his words, but deep down, guilt knotted my stomach. "Jake, it's not that simple. Mark and I have a life together." "Sure, but is that life really fulfilling you?" His voice softened, and I could see the sincerity in his eyes. "I know you, Emily. I can see it in the way you light up when you talk about your passions. You deserve that spark again." Just then, I realized I had been leaning in closer, drawn to him despite the warnings flashing through my mind like neon signs. I quickly pulled back, shaking my head. "You're crossing a line, Jake." "Am I?" He responded, his tone teasing but with an undercurrent of seriousness. "Or are you just scared of what you might feel if you let yourself go?" With the alcohol starting to blur the edges of my judgment, I felt a reckless surge of bravery. "I'm not scared," I said defiantly, though my heart betrayed me, pounding against my ribcage. Jake smirked, clearly amused. "Okay, then, prove it." The challenge hung between us like a tightrope stretched over an abyss. I was acutely aware of the tension crackling in the air, the way his gaze seemed to linger on my lips. I tried to shake it off, but the pull was undeniable. This was wrong, so wrong, yet I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. "Jake, I started, but..." My words faltered as he shifted closer again, his presence overwhelming. He began to share stories from our childhood, tales of mischief and adventure that made me laugh until my sides hurt. I leaned in, captivated by the memories, the way he could effortlessly make me feel young again. "And remember that time we tried to build a treehouse?" Jake chuckled, his eyes dancing with mischief. "We ended up getting stuck up there for hours because we were too scared to climb back down." I laughed, the sound bubbling up from deep within me. "Yes, and we had to call Mom to rescue us." What were we thinking? "Only that we were invincible," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. The moment hung between us, charged and electric. My breath caught in my throat as I realized how close we were, how the laughter had blurred into something more intimate. Suddenly, the room felt smaller. The music faded, and all I could hear was the thudding of my heart. Just as I decided I needed to leave, to escape this precarious situation, Jake leaned in, his breath warm against my skin. Before I could protest, he pressed his lips against mine, igniting a firestorm of emotions I had never anticipated. It was a kiss filled with yearning and confusion, leaving me breathless and utterly lost. The weight of what had just happened crashed over me like a tidal wave, blurring the lines of loyalty and desire. All I could think was how this kiss had changed everything, and as I pulled back, I felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. What had I done? As I stepped through the door of our home, the familiar scent of Mark's cologne, mixed with the faint aroma of the dinner I had prepared last night, wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me, heavier than any coat I had ever worn. The kiss with Jake was still fresh in my mind, and I could almost feel his lips grazing against mine, igniting a fire I never knew I had. My heart raced as I hung my coat by the door, knowing I needed to act normal, but every fiber of my being was in turmoil. "Emily, is that you?" Mark called from the living room, his voice warm and inviting, completely oblivious to the storm brewing within me. "Yeah, it's me," I replied, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my lips. I walked into the living room, where Mark was settled on the couch, his laptop resting on his knees. The glow of the screen illuminated his face, highlighting the lines of fatigue etched around his eyes. He looked up, and I could see the affection in his gaze. My heart sank further. How could I betray this man who loved me so deeply? "How was your dinner with Jake?" he asked, closing his laptop and setting it aside. "Did you guys have fun?" I hesitated, the truth clawing at my throat. "Yeah, it was nice," I managed to say. "He's always entertaining." Mark chuckled, and the sound was like a dagger to my heart. "He can definitely be a handful," he said, shaking his head. "But I'm glad you got to spend some time together. You deserve to have fun." I nodded, but the weight of my secret loomed over me like a dark cloud. "How was your trip?" I asked, desperately trying to shift the conversation away from the dinner. "It was good, but you know how it is, meetings, presentations." "The usual," he replied, his expression turning serious. "I missed you, though. It's nice to be home." "Missed you too," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess the truth about the kiss, but the words were stuck in my throat like a stone. As I sat beside him, my mind raced with thoughts of what I had done and what might happen next. "Are you okay?" Mark asked, his brow furrowing in concern. "You seem a bit off tonight." "I'm fine," I insisted, the word feeling like a lie as it slipped from my lips. "Just a little tired, I guess." I forced a laugh, but it felt hollow. "Really? You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" Mark pressed, his voice laced with concern. I swallowed hard, the guilt gnawing at me. "I know. I guess I'm still getting used to you being back. It's a lot to process," I said, hoping to deflect his worry. "Okay," he said slowly, studying my face. I could see he wanted to believe me, but I could also see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. I felt trapped, caught between the love I had for my husband and the dangerous allure of Jake. As I retreated to the kitchen to prepare some tea, my phone buzzed on the counter, the sound slicing through the silence. I glanced at it, my heart skipping a beat when I saw Jake's name lighting up the screen. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a thrill of excitement mixed with dread. I picked it up, my fingers trembling as I opened the message. "Hey, beautiful. I can't stop thinking about that kiss. We need to talk." My stomach twisted in knots. I knew I should ignore it, but a part of me was drawn to the thrill of the forbidden. I looked back at Mark, who was still in the living room, his attention on the television. What am I doing? I whispered to myself, torn between the desire to respond and the need to protect my marriage. I took a deep breath and began typing a reply, each word a step deeper into a dangerous game. Yeah, I can't stop thinking about it either. When can we talk? As I hit send, a rush of adrenaline coursed through me. I was dancing on the edge of a cliff, and I didn't know how far I was willing to fall. I found myself standing nervously outside the small cafe, the one Jake had suggested for our secret meeting. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden hue over the bustling street, but all I felt was a chill that ran down my spine. What was I doing? The memory of that kiss still lingered in my mind, igniting a mix of thrill and dread within me. As I stepped inside, the bell above the door chimed softly, and I spotted Jake sitting at a corner table, a playful smirk on his face as he waved me over. My heart raced. I hesitated for a moment, taking in how effortlessly handsome he looked, his tousled hair, casual shirt, and that confident demeanor. The sight of him made my pulse quicken, an intoxicating reminder of the chaos he had already brought into my life. "Hey, you made it," Jake exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "I was starting to think you'd chicken out." I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "I almost did," I admitted, sliding into the chair opposite him. "This feels risky." "Risky is the best part," he said, leaning closer. "Come on, it'll be fun. Just a little adventure." "Adventure? Is that what you call this?" I shot back, trying to sound more assertive than I felt. "I'm married, Jake." His expression softened, but there was still that gleam in his eye. "I know, Emily, but sometimes don't you feel like you need something more?" The question hung in the air, heavy and charged. I glanced around the cafe, suddenly aware of how people were immersed in their own conversations, oblivious to my internal turmoil. "I don't know what I need," I murmured, looking down at the table. He reached out, brushing his fingers against mine, sending an electric shock through me. "What if I told you that I see you? The real you, not just Mark's wife, but the amazing woman you are." My breath hitched. There was something about the way he spoke that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. I pulled my hand away, biting my lip to suppress the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. "Jake, this is dangerous." "Dangerous can be exhilarating," he whispered, leaning even closer. "Just one kiss, Emily. That's all I ask. If you want to stop, I'll respect that." I felt my resolve waver, the memory of our first kiss flooding back. It was intoxicating, thrilling, but also terrifying. "Just one kiss," I echoed, my heart pounding in my chest. "It doesn't mean anything." "Exactly," he replied, his voice low and inviting. "Just a moment. No strings attached." Before I could second-guess my decision, Jake leaned in, capturing my lips with his. The kiss was soft at first, then deepened, igniting a fire within me that I had long thought extinguished. I felt weightless, lost in the moment, until a rush of guilt washed over me like a cold wave. I pulled away abruptly, my mind racing. "What am I doing?" I gasped, my eyes wide with panic. "I can't keep doing this, Jake." He looked at me, concern etched on his face. "Emily, it's okay. We can take it slow." "No, it's not okay." I shot back, my voice rising. "I love Mark. I can't betray him like this, but you're not happy." Jake insisted, his tone shifting to desperation. "You deserve to feel alive again." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "Maybe I'm just going through a rough patch. I can't throw everything away for this thrill." Jake leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "You're right. This is complicated. but you can't deny that there's something between us. Just then, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out, my heart sinking as I recognized Mark's name flashing across the screen. "I have to go," I said, rising from my seat. "I can't do this anymore. Jake." He stood up too, reaching for my arm. "Emily, wait." But I was already walking away, my heart racing for entirely different reasons now. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my flushed cheeks, and I took a deep breath, trying to quell the storm of emotions inside me. I couldn't think straight. I needed to see Mark, to ground myself in the reality of my life before this spiraled any further. As I hurried home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted irreparably within me. The kiss, the connection with Jake. It all felt so wrong, yet so right in that moment. And as I approached my front door, I knew deep down that the truth would come out eventually, and I was terrified of what that would mean for my marriage. The air was thick with tension as Mark confronted Jake in the dimly lit living room, the remnants of our dinner still lingering in the air. My heart raced as I watched my husband's face twist with a mixture of anger and betrayal. "What the hell do you think you're doing with my wife?" Mark's voice cracked, the weight of his words hanging heavily between them. Jake leaned against the wall, arms crossed, an infuriating smirk dancing on his lips. "Relax, Mark. It's not what you think." He shrugged nonchalantly, but I could see the flicker of unease in his eyes. The atmosphere shifted, thickening with unspoken accusations and buried family rivalries. "Not what I think. You kissed her," Mark shouted, his fists clenching at his sides. The sight of my husband, usually so composed, now unraveling in front of me, sent a wave of guilt crashing over me. "You have no respect for our marriage, do you?" I stepped forward, the urge to intervene bubbling inside of me. "Mark, please." "No, Emily, you stay out of this," he snapped, his gaze still locked on Jake. "You think this is some game? You think you can come into my life and ruin everything? I trusted you." Jake's smirk faltered, replaced by a rare glimpse of vulnerability. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about you or me. It's about Emily. She deserves to be happy, something you clearly can't provide." The words hung in the air, sharp and cutting. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, torn between anger at Jake for his audacity and the sting of truth in his accusations. "Happy?" Mark spat. "You think you can waltz in here and make her happy? You're just a distraction, Jake. You always have been." The bitterness in Mark's voice was palpable, and I felt my heart sink. This was more than just a fight. This was a reckoning. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Both of you, stop. This isn't helping anything." My voice trembled, and I could see both of them turn to me, expressions shifting from hostility to confusion. I'm the one caught in the middle here. Jake stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "Emily, you don't have to defend me." No, I interrupted, my own emotions spilling out. "I need to be honest. I've been feeling lost for a while now. The kiss, it was a mistake, but it made me realize something." I paused, the weight of my confession heavy on my chest. "I have feelings for you, Jake, but I love Mark." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark's expression was a mixture of shock and hurt, while Jake looked almost defeated, the bravado crumbling. "So, what does that mean, Emily?" Mark's voice was barely above a whisper, the pain evident in his eyes. "I don't know. I didn't plan for any of this." I felt tears prick in my eyes. I just wanted to feel something again, to escape the monotony. Mark shook his head, his disappointment cutting deeper than any words. "So, you're telling me you've fallen for my brother, and you expect me to just accept it? After everything we've built?" His voice broke, and I felt my heart shatter at the sight of his anguish. "I never meant for this to happen. I love you," but Jake, I trailed off, the conflict within me raging like a tempest. I don't know what to do. Maybe you should decide who you really want, Emily, Jake said quietly, the cockiness gone from his demeanor. I can't keep being the reason for this family's turmoil. Jake, don't. I reached out, but he took a step back, an impenetrable wall forming between us. No, really, I think it's best if I leave town for a while. Give you both space to figure this out. His voice was steady, but I could see the hurt behind his eyes. Leave, I echoed, feeling panic rise within me. You can't just walk away. I have to, he replied, his expression resolute. For both of you. I'm sorry, Emily. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving a silence that felt like a gaping chasm in our lives. I stood frozen, my mind racing with the weight of my choices. The reality of my situation crashed down on me like a tidal wave. I was left with Mark, who looked utterly heartbroken, and the remnants of what had just transpired hung heavily in the air. I felt more lost than ever, standing at the precipice of decisions that could shatter everything I once held dear. I sat in the dim light of my living room, my heart pounding as I stared at my phone. The message was a complete shock, coming from an unknown number. Jake has a past you don't know about. Be careful. My mind raced with questions, each one more troubling than the last. What did this mean? Why was someone warning me? I had just begun to reconcile my feelings, to piece together the chaos that had dominated my life over the last few weeks. I was on the verge of confessing everything to Mark, of laying bare the truth about my kiss with Jake, and the emotions that had spiraled out of control. Now, I felt a new wave of confusion wash over me. Who was this anonymous person? And why did they feel the need to reach out to me now? My fingers trembled as I considered responding, but I hesitated. What if this was a prank? Or worse, what if it was someone trying to manipulate me further? I needed answers, but I didn't know where to start. Just then, my phone buzzed again, breaking my train of thought. It was a message from Sarah. Hey, how did it go with Mark? You okay? I could almost hear the concern in her voice. I took a deep breath, deciding to confide in her. Not great. I got a weird message about Jake. Someone's warning me to be careful. A moment later, her reply came through, filled with exclamation points. What? Emily, you have to find out who sent that. What do you know about Jake's past? This is serious. I felt my chest tighten. I didn't know much about Jake outside of the fun, charming persona he presented. Sure, he had a wild streak, but hadn't everyone? Mark had always spoken highly of his brother, often brushing off any concerns about his reckless behavior as youthful indiscretion. But now I wondered if there was more to the story. Not much. Just that he's always been the fun one, the one who gets into trouble. But nothing serious. I could imagine Sarah pacing back and forth on the other end of the line, her mind racing with possibilities. Emily, this is sounding like a movie plot. You need to dig deeper. Talk to Mark, see what he knows. You can't let this go. Her words echoed in my mind, urging me to take action. But fear gripped me. What if I uncovered something that would shatter my already fragile marriage? I loved Mark. I didn't want to hurt him. Yet the thought of being manipulated by Jake sent shivers down my spine. I decided I needed to confront Jake, to ask him directly about the message. My heart raced at the thought. What if he was hiding something sinister? What if my feelings for him had been nothing more than a game to him? The next day, I found myself sitting at a cafe, my hands clammy as I waited for Jake to arrive. I had texted him, trying to sound casual, but inside, I was a bundle of nerves. When he walked in, his usual swagger made my heart skip a beat, but I quickly reminded myself of the stakes. Hey, he greeted, sliding into the seat across from me. His eyes sparkled with mischief, and for a moment, I was tempted to forget everything. Hey, Jake. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. I need to talk to you about something serious. He raised an eyebrow, his playful demeanor shifting slightly. What's up? I hesitated, but the weight of the anonymous message pressed down on me. I got a strange message about you. Someone warned me to be careful. Jake's expression hardened for a split second before he flashed a charming smile. People love to gossip. You know how it is. I wasn't convinced. This felt different, Jake. It said you have a past, something I should know about. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it fear? Anger? Listen, Emily, he said slowly, I'm not perfect, but I'm not dangerous. His words hung in the air, a mix of reassurance and uncertainty. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at my insides. Then tell me, what is it? What are you hiding? He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms defensively. It's complicated, but whatever it is, I promise it won't hurt you. I felt my heart racing, torn between the allure of his charm and the instinctive need to protect myself and my marriage. I need to know the truth, Jake, before I can decide anything. The tension between us was palpable, hanging like a storm cloud overhead. I had opened Pandora's box, and now there was no turning back. As Jake looked away, lost in thought, I knew that this conversation would lead to revelations that could change everything.